What's up, everybody? Glad you're back. I have a confession. I freaking love knots. I know that line locks weigh like a gram and they can be used to tighten lines as well, but there's just something about the craft of a well-tied knot that I find tremendously satisfying. Also, knots are more versatile and they're stronger. That said, let's run through the 5 best knots for ultralight backpackers. Up first, and in no particular order, we have our Bowline knot. The bowline is actually known when you use rope for being really easy to untie, but when we use thin lines like we do in ultralight backpacking, it actually ends up being very, very secure. This is commonly going to be used to attach your guy lines onto your tarp. You can actually add a slip to the end as well, so that you can easily untie it and move them around as needed. In addition to using this knot to attach my guy lines to my tarp, I also use it on one end of a continuous ridge line, and I also use it on my bear bagging line to attach the line to a carabiner. To tie our bowline, we first create a loop so that the short end of our line is on the top of the loop. And then we take the short end, we go up through the loop, we take it around the long end, and then back through the loop, then we tighten it up. And there's our bowline. The second knot that we're going to talk about is our Clove Hitch. Typically, you're going to use this to attach your guy lines to a trekking pole or a stick or something like that. But you'll also use this to attach a stake, stick, or a toggle to your bear bagging line when doing the PCT hang. For our Clove Hitch, we're going to make 2 loops so that they create sort of a spiral in the line. And then we're simply going to reverse their positions so that the bottom loop is on top of the top loop, or what was the top loop anyway. And we can spread them out just a little bit. And then from there you would insert your trekking pole or your stick or whatever you're going to use and tighten it up. And you now have a very, very secure knot. The third knot that we're going to talk about is our Prusik knot. The Prusik knot creates a movable loop on a line that locks in place when there's load put on it in the direction of the line. This is commonly used to attach a tarp to a continuous ridge line, and it works best when the line that you're using to tie the knot is thinner than the ridge line itself. To tie your Prusik knot, you want to start with the loop of whatever cordage you want to use for the knot. Just ideally, it's thinner than the ridge line that you're going to be putting it on. It doesn't necessarily need to be this big of a loop. This is just what I happen to have around. So we're going to take our ridge line and we'll take the line that we want to use for our knot, put it over our ridge line, and then feed it through itself. So that when you tighten it up, you get something that looks like this. And then we're going to do this a minimum of 2 times. I like to do it 3, but really you can do it as many times as you want to within reason. So I'm going to take again, and I'm going to feed it through, pull it tight, and then I'm going to do it one more time, go around, feed it through, and pull everything tight. Then we just kind of clean up our knot a little bit. And there we have our completed Prusik. Our fourth knot is the slipped sheet bend. This is used to extend your guy lines with another piece of line. And the awesome thing about it is that you can use a line that's either the same diameter or a different diameter than the guy lines that you're using. So you don't have to worry about whether or not you have the right size spare line with you. For our slip sheet bend, we'll first start with the line that we want to extend. And we'll take a bight out of it, just like so. Then we'll take the line that we want to attach to it, and this can either be the same diameter or different. It doesn't really matter. This one happens to be thinner. We'll feed it through the bight, and then wrap it around. And then we'll take a bight of this cord as well, and we'll feed it through the loop that was created right there. And then we tighten everything up. And now we have a very secure knot holding these two lines together. And if we want to separate them, all we have to do is just tug on this bit of the line right here, and the whole thing comes apart easily. Last but certainly not least is our trucker's hitch. And our trucker's hitch is used to tension lines much like you would with a line lock. You can use this knot to get really strong tension on your ridge lines and your guy lines for your tarp. As a bonus, you also need to make a slip loop in order to create the Taut-Line hitch. So now you know how to make a slip loop as well, which is another really handy knot. To tie our trucker's hitch, we first start with our guy line. And then on this side of the guy line would be the anchor point that we want to tie off to. And this side of the guy line would already be tied onto your tarp. And what we'll do is we'll create a loop like that. And we take a bight of this line, the shorter line, and we pass it through. So now we have a slip loop on our line. And then we take the shorter side, pass it through that slip loop. And now at this point, your stake or your other anchor point would be sitting in here. We would tighten this up to create tension. And then once we get it to where we want, we simply pinch this area right here, wrap it around, and then put a bight through the loop. So I'll close it up here, and you have something that looks like this. Finally, I want to talk about why I haven't included the Taut-Line hitch in this list. First off, if you're using a Taut-Line hitch now and you love it and it's working for you, keep on doing what you're doing. That's totally cool. Personally, having experimented with both, I have found that the trucker's hitch offers several advantages over the Taut-Line hitch. The first is that the trucker's hitch gives you 2-to-1 mechanical advantage when tightening down your lines, which is super helpful for getting a tight ridge line. Second, you can more easily attach it to natural anchors like roots, which are always stronger than stakes. And third, it offers greater adjustability, whereas with a Taut-Line hitch, you can really only reduce the length of your guy line by about 50%. This is especially important when you want to use a sil nylon shelter and stake it relatively low to the ground, but know that you're going to need to tension it again in an hour or so. I will concede that the trucker's hitch can be a bit more challenging to tie when the standing end isn't under tension, like when you're placing your first couple of stakes, but once you practice it a little bit, it's really not that big of a deal, and the positives far outweigh the negatives in my opinion. You can also make things easier by running your line through the bowline on your tarp rather than through a slip loop. And there you have it, the 5 best knots for ultralight backpacking. Practice at home, give them a shot in the backcountry, and let me know down below in the comments how it went.